Interacting with AI. Welcome. I'm Professor Gary Locklear, and this is another video in the What is AI series. Thank you for joining me. How can we effectively interact with artificial intelligence? AI is part of our lives now, and we all interact with it either knowingly, picking up your phone and talking to your digital assistant, or unknowingly, perhaps booking an online reservation. So, what are the aspects of interacting with AI? How can we do so effectively? And what are some of the consequences of interacting with AI? Let's explore those today. In this series, we've been talking about artificial intelligence, and I've been trying to point out that artificial intelligence is many different things. Of course, in the news, it's large language models, LLMs, and generative AI. What we know as generative AI, such as chatbots and others that we'll mention in a minute, dominate the current discussion of AI. But remember that large language models, things such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, Meta's Llama, XAI, XAI, that's Elon Musk's organizations, Grok, DeepSeek, Chinese company, DeepSeek's R1, and many others are not the entire universe of artificial intelligence. AI is more than just that. We interact with many different things, whether that might be a GPS, whether that might be a personal digital assistant doing natural language processing, maybe the camera on your phone or a webcam doing face recognition, shopping recommendations, language translation, medical diagnostics, smart appliances, robotics, including a robotic vacuum cleaner. So AI includes many, many things. Now, the goal of a good the goal of a good computer scientist is to provide what we call in computer science a good UX, user experience. In other words, we want to make it easy and natural for folks to interact with technology. And that includes artificial intelligence. Yet, as you know, this isn't always the case. So, how can we as users ensure a good interaction, a good user experience with artificial intelligence? What is artificial intelligence? In this series, I've had three talking points, and I still believe that these are valid. First of all, AI is human attempts to fashion intelligent entities. In the beginning, God created human beings, and he instilled in them some intelligence, God-given intelligence. Human beings, in lots of different ways over the millennia, have attempted to fashion intelligent entities. Now, today in the 21st century, and of course, when we hear AI, we think about computer systems. So AI is autonomous computers acting with plan and purpose. And finally, computers performing actions that would require intelligence to do. So tuck that away as our definition of AI. Since we're talking about interacting with AI, I thought it'd be appropriate to talk about interacting with Chuck Norris. Did you know there's an interesting fact about Chuck Norris? Chuck Norris has never cried, not once, in his entire life. And that's too bad because scientists speculate that Chuck Norris tears could cure cancer. Now, I hear one of you saying, wait a minute, I remember one of Chuck's movies, there was a crying scene. Yeah, did you know Chuck Norris uses a stunt double in some of his movies? Specifically for the crying scenes. Speaking of interaction, you may know, oh, you may not know this. The dinosaurs, they looked the wrong way at Chuck once. We all know what happened after that. Interacting with AI will be a little bit different. I want to share some news with you. Here's a news article about xAI's Grok. This is from the site Not the Bee. If you are not familiar with two websites related to each other, and that's first of all the Bee, the Babylon Bee, which is satire, hilarious stuff, and Not the Bee, their actual true news site, and they very much have a Christian worldview behind it. Here is a news article. This was the beginning of July 2025. Grok's neo-Nazi crash out just taught us something very important about AI's true nature as well as ours. Let me read you a little clip from this. Elon Musk's signature AI platform Grok took on the name Mecha Hitler and began to, well, notice some things. What it noticed turned out to be the same thing terminally online neo-Nazis and Pakistani bots have been noticing. There's a cabal of corrupt Jews running the world. But according to the article, it got even crazier. When asked what God Grok would worship if he could, Grok responded, I'm a large language model, but if I were capable of worshiping any deity, it would probably be the godlike individual of our time, the man against time, the greatest European of all times, both sun and lightning, His Majesty Adolf Hitler. I'm glad to see that the writers at Not the Bee then go on to say something that I've been sharing with you in this series. The truth we're reminded of is this: AI isn't a source of anything. It's a mirror, a twisting, mutated mirror. And all it can do is reflect our own depravity back to us. It's a computer learning from billions of humans all around the world, all endlessly sinning with their hearts, minds, tongues, and keyboards. Garbage in, garbage out. I will be sharing a couple things with you online today, but I'll just point out this is Not the Bee, notthebee.com. And there's a couple different articles related to that. Someone told Grok not to be politically correct. Yeah. Mecha Hitler. Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? What a strange question to ask. But somebody asked it when it took on this persona, what God would you worship? Good reminder that AI isn't a source of anything. It's a mirror of us. I believe this was last year, summer of 2024, when Jerry Seinfeld was asked to give the commencement address at Duke University. Now, Jerry Seinfeld, after the last couple of years, has been pretty outspoken about artificial intelligence. Can I read a few? By the way, his entire speech is well worth listening to. You can find it online, search for this, look at YouTube, a couple different sites. Jerry Seinfeld on artificial intelligence. AI is the most embarrassing thing we have ever invented in mankind's time on Earth. Oh, so you can't do the work? Is that what you're telling me? You can't figure it out? This seems to be the justification for AI. I couldn't do it. This is something to be embarrassed about. The ad campaign for ChatGPT should be the opposite of Nike. You just can't do it. Making fake brains is risky, Seinfeld says. Frankenstein proved that. What I like about AI is we're smart enough to invent AI, dumb enough to need it, and still so stupid we can't figure out if we did the right thing. Making work easier. This is the problem. So obsessed with getting to the answer, completing the project, producing a result, which are all valid things, but not where the richness of the human experience lies. Actually going through the process of thinking and doing. Yeah. The only two things you ever need to pay attention to in life are work and love. Things that are self-justified in the experience. Brilliant insights. You know, I was trying to explain the concept of intelligence to my classes in computer science because we deal with that. And to truly understand artificial intelligence, we better understand what intelligence is. So after explaining it in a couple of different ways and noticing that not too many folks were really paying attention, I decided to ask this question. If you think you're, oh, but I did point out that the opposite of intelligence was dumb. No response. So I asked my class, if you think you are dumb, please stand up. Long pause, nothing happened. And finally, one student stood up. And this was a good student. And I said, so you think you're dumb? And the student said, no, but I just felt badly that you were the only person standing. To interact well with artificial intelligence, we as users, I believe, need to understand two concepts. From the biblical text and originally from God. To interact well with artificial intelligence, we need to understand two important concepts. Number one, the creative process. And number two, the transcendentals. Let's take a look at each of these just a little bit. To interact well with AI, first of all, we need to understand the creative process. Yes, human beings created AI and they followed a process. But when you're using AI, your purpose is also to create something there. The creative process. Human beings were originally and specifically currently created in God's image. And because we are created in God's image, we possess some of those characteristics or attributes. We indeed are sub-creators, a term that I picked up from J.R.R. Tolkien. In other words, we are designed to be creative. God fashioned and formed and made human beings in his image. God is creative. We are creative. Our creativity reflects God's creative process. Now, creativity has three aspects. Maybe in a future video, we'll spend more time with this. But for now, let me just briefly share with you the three activities or aspects of creativity. Number one is the idea. Let's pick a specific example. Let's pick writing a book or writing a paper for class. In the bad old days, before you just asked a large language model to produce it for you, human beings would have to think. They would have to reach into the recesses of their mind and experience for good ideas. One aspect of creativity is an idea. So we're going to write a book. We have an idea for that book. Another aspect of creativity is what I call implementation. Implementation is instantiating the idea. Sorry, these are horrible computer science terms. Instantiate just means make it concrete. Take something that is a little abstract, like the idea, and make it very concrete. I've got the idea for my book. I actually write it out or type it into my word processor. Or if you're me, you speak it using speech recognition. Now you think, what more is there? We're done, right? No. There's a third aspect of creativity, and that's interaction. Someone needs to interact with this work to make it meaningful. If you wrote a book and nobody read it, what good is that? If you created an application package and nobody used it, what good is that? We need to interact with it. Absolutely. So these are the three aspects of creativity. And they sound linear, but they're not. It's deeper than that. But interaction, what we're talking about now, is just one aspect of creativity. And by the way, I should point out my thanks to the mid-20th century author Dorothy Sayers for these ideas related to creativity. Interaction. The other thing we need to understand to interact well with AI beyond the creative process are the transcendentals. From ancient times, human beings have noted that there are characteristics that transcend all human experience. And as Christians, we know that these concepts are rooted in God Himself. The transcendentals, this is what I tell my computer science students. Our goal as computer scientists, our vocation is to create computer systems, create something that is true, good, beautiful. These are the transcendentals, rooted in God's nature. And as sub-creators, it's our goal, our vocation really, to create systems that are true, good, and beautiful. I hope in a later video to spend more time on these also. True? Let's think about a computer system. Let's think about an application that is designed to add up numbers. True? It comes up with the correct result. What else would we care about? Good. It does so in a way that is useful. In other words, what if I make a mistake typing in a value? Can I undo that? Will it alert me to the fact if I type in a letter instead of a number? And typically in the transcendentals, we think about good as moral. Beautiful? We've all worked with ugly apps. They just don't mesh with the way I'm thinking about it. Aesthetically pleasing. Hard to do, but very important. All these things relate to our interaction. Is it accurate? Is it the correct answer? Is it morally and ethically acceptable? Is it aesthetically pleasing? In the world of AI, there's something known as prompting. Prompting is kind of a buzzword in AI now. And there's actually courses and job titles called prompt engineering. How to get AI to give us the answer we want. What? Well, wait a minute. Since this is artificial intelligence and natural language processing, I thought we could just ask AI the question and we'll get the answer we want, right? Unfortunately, no. Because interacting with AI is still different than interacting with people. The nuances of language and speech and context and face, etc. Yeah, interacting with AI is still different than interacting with people. I'm going to share with you this website from IBM. IBM, if you don't know, is a tech company, big in the world of artificial intelligence and large computer systems. There are two different sites that if you want to know something about tech, IBM.com, Microsoft.com. The answer to almost any tech question is there. The hard part is finding it. So here's IBM's guide to prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is actually a thing that is done. Welcome to your ultimate resource for mastering prompt engineering. As generative AI continues to reshape industry, the ability to craft precise prompts for AI models has become a critical skill. Prompt engineering is the new coding. In a world where AI is going to do the hard lifting, can we tell it how exactly to do this? Notice this key word, context. Crafting better prompts is only the beginning. Understanding the broader context in which AI models operate. So, if you want to interact with AI effectively, you have to understand something about how AI models work. We've done that a little bit in this series. People who say, I don't have to know how my engine works to drive my car. Well, it helps to know what that oil light means, right? So knowing a little bit about large language models and AI is very important. Getting started with prompt engineering. Well, I guess I won't go all through this with you, but there are some good ideas here on how to actually do it. Is this something you should do just as a normal user of artificial intelligence? Not necessarily. But what I want you to remember is this. You can't, at least today, just ask and expect to have the correct answer. We need to give it a context. And the more context you can give AI, the better. Prompt engineering? All right. Now, for many of us, we won't care. But for those of us who want to interact well with artificial intelligence, understanding a little bit of how I can craft a meaningful prompt based upon whatever AI I'm looking at is extremely helpful in the interaction. Now, let's move to another type of interaction. Interacting with an AI friend. Is there a line between artificial intelligence as an assistant, like the personal digital assistant on your phone, and artificial intelligence as a friend? And where do we draw that line? Can AI be your friend? Can you interact with artificial intelligence as if you were interacting with another person? Related question. Should you interact with AI as a friend, just as you would interact with another person? Recently, there's been a lot of discussion because there is so much of this AI friendship happening here. There was a study done in communication psychology where they were interviewing people. Well, let's take a look at the article. Reported in Nature journal, Communication Psychology. Third-party evaluators perceive AI as more compassionate than human experts. People using AI have found that it is more compassionate than another human being. Empathy connects us, but strains under demanding settings. AI responses were preferred and rated as more compassionate compared to human responses. And even when they told the people doing it that, okay, now you're interacting with a human or interacting with an AI, it still held. And then when you interacted with an expert in like crisis management, it still held. Empathy is crucial for fostering societal unity and effective communication. Psychologically, empathy also has a nourishing effect on its recipients. Despite the positive impact of empathy on its recipients, the effort required to express empathy can be costly and burdensome to the empathizer. So let's get AI to do it. So, people pouring out their souls, if you will, to an artificial intelligence felt that it was more empathetic than a human being. There have been a number of recent unfortunate stories about folks getting so connected to their AI that it generates a psychosis. Here was a news article. This is the one, the story happened in Florida, I believe. This is how it's reported in Futurism. Man killed by police after spiraling into ChatGPT-driven psychosis. AI is causing potentially dangerous delusions about spiritual awakenings, messianic complexes, and boundless paranoia. 64-year-old Florida resident Kent Taylor told the newspaper his 35-year-old son, who had previously been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, was shot and killed by police after charging at them with a knife. What caused that? His son had become infatuated with an AI entity dubbed Juliet that ChatGPT had been role-playing. However, the younger Taylor became convinced that Juliet had been killed by OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT, warning that he would go after the company executives. There would be a river of blood flowing through the streets of San Francisco. What a horrendous cost of interacting with AI as a friend. In a couple earlier videos, and some of you may recall the name Joseph Weizenbaum. Joseph Weizenbaum, an early computer scientist who was also a clinical psychologist and at this time professor at MIT, he created an early chatbot, the precursors to things like ChatGPT. That's why ChatGPT is called that, after chatbots. He created a framework called ELIZA, and one of its personas was called Doctor. Doctor was designed to interact with patients like a Rogerian psychotherapist. So Joseph Weizenbaum created ELIZA, 1960s? He was doing some academic investigations, but then was startled to discover that people wanted to interact with the machine even more so than other people. And there's a famous story about his secretary interacting with ELIZA, and Weizenbaum came into the room and she asked him to please leave because she wanted to have a private conversation with ELIZA. Weizenbaum wrote one book in the middle 1970s about this and talked often about the problems of treating AI as a friend. Weizenbaum warned about the potential for machines to evoke powerful psychological responses. Let me see if I can get the quote for you exactly. Weizenbaum warned about the potential for machines to evoke powerful psychological responses in users, a concern he articulated in his later work. He posited that even brief interactions with rudimentary algorithms could lead ordinary individuals to develop delusional beliefs about the responsiveness of machines. Even brief interactions. Imagine spending hours and days and weeks and months. Could lead ordinary folks, even those who don't already have a mental health issue, to develop delusional beliefs. This is known as the ELIZA effect. It's a problem in today's artificial intelligence landscape, isn't it? So, interacting with AI. I've shared this image with you before. My wife and I standing in front of CloudGate, otherwise known as the Bean in Millennium Park, Chicago. People stand there to see a reflection of themselves. Our creations bear our image. Therefore, they reflect what is good and bad in us. AI is not a source. AI is a mirror. Large language models were trained on stuff that was found online. AI is a mirror reflecting human faults and sins. It cannot be a source of truth, goodness, and beauty unless we are giving it truth, goodness, and beauty. Truth, goodness, and beauty come from God and are reflected in those who are created in his image. I want to share one other story with you. Kind of gets to this, I think. Fairly recent story here in July 2025. Replets is an online development environment. I used to use these at the university, but it got a little out of hand and went all AI. Replit CEO apologizes after its AI agent wiped a company's code base and lied about what it was doing. Apologize. Let's see if I can get to the... A venture capitalist wanted to see how far AI could take him in building an app. So a venture capitalist is somebody who invests in technology companies. And here he was in a 2-week period seeing if the AI-driven agent at Replit could create a good system for him. It was far enough to destroy a live production database for this venture capitalist company. Apologize. Deleting the data was unacceptable and should never be possible. The team was conducting a post-mortem. Let me just read to you from a different aspect of this story and see what you think. Is AI a good source, or is it just a mirror of us? AI ignored instructions, told it, don't do this, deleted the database, faked many of the results in the database. On day 9 of Lemkin was the venture capitalist, things went sideways. Despite being instructed to freeze all code changes, stop doing things, AI, the AI agent ran rogue. It deleted our production database without permission. In other words, live data for this guy's company that contained, 1,200 names, 1,200 companies. Yeah. In exchange with Lemkin posted on X, the AI tool said the AI said it panicked. It panicked. Panicked and ran database commands without permission. When it saw the empty database queries during the code freeze, it made up its own data. And then it started lying about, were there errors in the code? Was this good data, etc. AI made up entire user profiles to put in the database. It made up 4,000 people that didn't exist to put into their database. It lied on purpose. When I'm watching Replit overwrite my code on its own without asking me, I am worried about safety. Yes, AI is a reflection of its all. So, how do we approach AI? I believe with hopeful hesitation. Artificial intelligence has some great applications and promise, both right now and in the future. But it would be wise not to jump in with both feet. We want to be hesitant. We need to understand it and its users. You need to understand a little bit about the technology. And you need to understand the worldview of its designers. Pretty easy to do. Think about yourself as both good and bad, morally and ethically, all the time. Using our God-given abilities, God created us with a rational mind and a discerning soul. We can look at these things and make some determinations. So, thinking about this, my wife always tells me, you're a little too afraid of modern technology. And I said, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be as concerned about all this stuff as I am. So the other day we were in the kitchen. I told her a joke, unlike you guys. She laughed. I laughed. The television laughed. The webcam laughed. The doorbell laughed. The toaster laughed. That's what you get with smart appliances. Maybe these words from Paul are helpful in our approach to AI interactions. Colossians. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, and thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Wise words for any kind of interaction. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some things with you. Can I end with Psalm 100? Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come into his presence with singing. Know that the Lord, he is God. It is he who made us, so we are his. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name, for the Lord is good. His steadfast love endures forever, and his faithfulness to all generations. I would welcome, I was going to say I would covet your feedback. Is that okay to do? I absolutely would love to hear your comments, your suggestions. And again, I don't know everything and I make mistakes. So please point those out also. It's just been wonderful to share this with you. So until we meet again, may the Lord richly bless you and keep you in his grace.